Hello and welcome to the Mumbles and Things YouTube channel. My name is Maggie, and on this channel I react to witchy content and I answer your witchcraft questions. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, make sure that you are subscribed and you hit the bell to be notified each time that I upload a new video. And please give this video a like if you do in fact like it. If you don't like it, feel free to give it a dislike. Either way, it helps my channel grow and it tells me some information about what kind of content you do or do not like. Today we will be reacting to a video that I have not finished watching yet. I started watching it to make sure that it was something worth reacting to, and I think it might be. If it's not, you won't see this. If you have anything to add to this commentary, my commentary, then feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know what else you think about it, and we'll keep the conversation going in the comment section.
Hello all and welcome, and I am Augustus. In this video, I would like to talk specifically about divination tools, and even more specifically about...
Did he say demonation tools? I think he was actually saying divination tools, but he said it divination tools, which is fine. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
The Ouija board, as that is the divination tool that is most well known by the majority of people, though it's not the only one out there. But for the purposes of this video, I will focus on that. So firstly, what you need to understand is what the Ouija board is not. Now, the Ouija board is not a toy. Yeah, I know it's sold in toy stores and it's marketed as a toy, but it's not a toy. But the majority of people, they don't understand what it is, its purpose. They don't believe in the occult world, and in turn, they don't take it seriously. Hence, the Ouija board is able to be sold to children in the form of a game. What's the purpose of selling it as a game to children?
Bad.
So as to corrupt our youth.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Let me reiterate. It's not a game. So what is it then? It's a divination tool.
Yes.
It's a divination tool for contacting non-human entities. Now I know most people believe that it's for contacting the dead, but the last thing this device does is contact dead people.
I'm not sure why he's making a distinction there. First of all, I'm making an assumption about this person's belief, and I don't know anything about them. Based on the context of this video and the content of this video, I'm assuming that they are like a fundamentalist Christian, someone who really believes in the words of the Bible as being the only way to live. There are different varying types of Christians. Some don't see the Bible as the only way to live. Some people do. I am inferring that he might be one of the fundamentalists who live by the words in the Bible. And the reason that I am making that assumption is because of the types of people that I have reacted to in the past and had interactions with, using biblical passages to condemn me and my witchcraft practice. One of the commonly quoted passages is it condemns divination. And so the fact that he is talking about divination tools in this context, let me see if I can find it. Yes, I have a Bible here. Yes, I am a witch and I am holding a Bible. It is not burning me. And yes, I have tabs on the side of my Bible pointing out passages that I enjoy. Because even though I am not a Christian, I appreciate historic texts. I appreciate spiritual wisdom from all religions. So, that aside, I think the passage is the most common one that people spew at me is from Leviticus. Leviticus 18, I believe, 19. It's under the heading, Various Laws. This one. I think it's funny. I think this is why it's stuck into my head. Leviticus 19:26, one that people often share with me, starts out, do not eat any meat with blood still in it. So that one I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. I'm a vegan. Don't eat any meat. You could just end it there. I don't know how you eat any meat without blood in it. I assume that it's talking, this is a total aside, completely unrelated. The blood is still in it, even if it's cooked, in case anyone was wondering. The second part of it, though, that is relevant to this conversation is do not practice divination or sorcery. And so that is commonly quoted to me in my comments section and in my DMs. On the same page, Leviticus 19:31, I think. Yes. Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. So the fact that he's making a distinction between talking to a deceased loved one and a non-human entity is really interesting to me, because somebody who lives by the Bible and is anti-divination should also be anti-mediumship, which is, of course, speaking to deceased people, spirits. So again, I'm making an assumption about him. I do not know that that is his beliefs. It just, if it is, it seems a little bit hypocritical that he's saying people think that they are talking to a deceased loved one, but in fact they are speaking to a non-human entity, referring to demons, I imagine. So yes, that distinction is interesting to me. Let's keep playing. Let's get back to what he's saying and see what else. Knox, you can't get up here. There's no room. Oh, I know. There's no room, though. You want to sit on my lap? Let me see your baby. Oh, let me see your baby. No, you don't want me to? Yeah.
It's used for, but I have yet to see a case where it wasn't something else pretending to be a loved one who had passed or some other dead individual.
So again, it seems like he's okay with someone trying to speak to a loved one who has passed, which is confusing to me. Additionally, the way he says, I have yet to see a case where it's not something else, is surprising, because I'm just wondering how many Ouija board sessions has he been a part of? What is his sample size? Is this a true scientific study with a control group and enough samples? Or is this maybe like 5 people and they all ended badly? I don't know. Let me see your work.
But it was none of the above. It was something else entirely. The last thing that you would want to call and communicate with. That then begs the question, what is a divination tool?
It bothers me that way he says divination. I do appreciate that he's going to start out with a definition. I think that that is really helpful for communicating with someone who you might have a disagreement with, is making sure that you are agreeing on the terminology that you're using. Different people have different definitions for words. So you'll find that my sister and I, we often define words on our podcast before we talk about them, just so that everyone understands like the way that we're using a word, the definition that we're using, and then we can all understand each other better. So I appreciate that he's starting with a definition. Let's see how he defines a divination tool.
Tool is a device of a physical nature which acts as a conduit between whatever it is you're making contact with and the bearer of the divination tool itself.
I agree with that. Divination tools are tools that help you to communicate with a spirit, entity, some sort of divine being, something that is beyond the physical realm. That is how I would describe it. I feel like my definition aligns with how he defined it. So let's see what else he has to say.
The divination tool allows the user or users of the device to open themselves up to an outside force so as to facilitate contact.
Yeah, I would agree with that the tool opens you up to communication, to contact some other entity.
Contact from the entity through the device to the user. In turn, the user becomes a tool through which the outside force can then communicate with us.
I don't agree with that part.
Did you catch that part? A tool. That's right. You become a tool. Like a puppet.
Yeah, I don't agree with that part. You do not become a tool because you use the tool. I don't become a hammer when I use a hammer to nail something into the wall to hang a picture. When I brush my teeth in the morning, I don't become a toothbrush. When I use a shovel to dig a hole to plant something, I don't become a shovel. I am using a shovel. So if I'm using my tarot cards, I don't become tarot cards. I don't become a tool or a puppet. The tool is the tool, and I'm the user of the tool. Maybe he has more to say that explains himself, but no.
Sound good? No, it doesn't sound good to me either. So the person or persons using the device open themselves up to and give permission to whatever force they're communicating with to use their body to a certain extent for the sole purposes of communication.
I don't think that's what's happening. Hi, are you back? You can't, there's no room. I want to sit here. My cat is trying to steal my chair. He's mad that I'm sitting here. You come in. Okay. I scooch over. Here you go. I have to sit on half of the chair so that my cat can sit on the other half. Where were we? This is Nox, by the way. I'm going to go back because Nox distracted me. Let's listen to it again.
A tool. That's right. You become a tool. Like a puppet. Sound good? No, it doesn't sound good to me either. So the person or persons using the device open themselves up to and give permission to whatever force they're communicating with to use their body to a certain extent for the sole purposes of communication.
You have control over your body autonomy, your bodily autonomy, your body autonomy. I'm not sure what's the right way to phrase that. Using the tool doesn't bypass your ability to give permission to an entity to control or manipulate you. When you use a tool, you can set an intention that only spirits that have your best interest at heart, only spirits and entities that are helpful and welcome can enter your space and interact with you, and prevent malicious spirits, unhelpful spirits and entities from communicating with you or entering your space. He's giving these tools too much power. They are, okay, so I have, let me get my Ouija board. An aside. This is called the Magpie Lenormand. It is so beautiful. Rosengrosjean. I will link their Instagram below or their website or whatever I have available. I got this with the Kickstarter because my grandpa calls me Magpie, or he used to. My grandpa gave me the nickname Magpie when I was a kid, partly because this is a total aside. I hope you enjoy this story. Partly because he and we used to go on walks together. My grandparents used to have a house with like this huge open space behind it, and then you could see the Rocky Mountains. And so we'd go on walks, him and me, and also my grandma and, you know, my other family members as well. But I always had so much fun walking with him because we always found little treasures. We would bring them. It was mostly garbage. It was mostly like stuff that is not useful really. But he and we would find something beautiful about it. And so I think that's part of why he called me Magpie, but also the obvious play on my name being Maggie, Magpie, and magpies are native to Colorado, so we would see them a lot on these walks. Anyway, I was looking for a magpie tarot deck. I have yet to find one. If you know of one, please let me know, because I really would enjoy a magpie deck. I have the Crow Tarot, which I love, and now I have the Magpie Lenormand, which I also love, but I would love a magpie tarot deck. One of the gifts for the Kickstarter was this beautiful Ouija board and this planchette. It's metal. So I forget why I was gonna get this though. I like told you that whole story and I forget why. What was I talking about? Oh, I remember. I was gonna show you what it's made out of. This is a piece of cardboard or something. I think it's like cardstock. It's thick. It's, you know, not flimsy or anything. It's very stiff. And then this is metal. So they have no more power than a hammer is made of wood and metal. They are inanimate objects that only have power because you give them power. When you use a hammer, you put your force into it and it has power because of that. When you use a divination tool, you give it power because of using it. You're assigning it the purpose of helping you communicate with an outside entity. He's giving these tools more power. The only way that you are going to open yourself up to these scary things that he's talking about, he's using like fear-mongering techniques to make people fearful of these tools. The only way that you're going to open yourself up to something that is undesirable is if you haven't set up the protections against those things. Even then, like sometimes I don't, and I have not experienced anything undesirable or freaky or scary. So, you know, knock on wood or whatever, but I don't think they have as much power as he's giving them. They're just tools. Additionally, I want to add to my definition of divination. The root of divination is divine. Divination, divine. So you are communicating with something that's divine. And the way I think about something that's divine is simply something that is not of the physical realm. Anything outside of the physical realm. So in that way, it's kind of weird actually that the Bible would explicitly forbid divination because, I mean, God is a divine being, right? A non-human entity, as this video creator is naming the things that might communicate with you with the Ouija board. Wouldn't that include God? I don't understand. It's odd to me that the only things that he thinks would communicate with you through a Ouija board are non-human entities, and he's grouping them all into something bad or scary when it could be something good and helpful that you want to talk to, like God or angels or a goddess or anything. So it's interesting to me that he has decided that non-human entities is bad, even though God falls in that category. Also, the specification of it being okay to try to communicate with deceased loved ones, even though that's mediumship. All of it is very confusing, hypocritical. Okay. Let's see what else he has to say.
Now that's what you want. That's what your intention is. However, does that speak to the intent of that thing that you're communicating with? Sound like a bad idea? Messing with this stuff? Yeah, it's a bad idea to be sure.
His smugness is very irritating. Your intention when you set out to use a divination tool is communication, sure. I don't understand why he's like emphasizing that, because that's all that really matters is your intention.
Now, in regards to the place that you are using a divination tool in, if the person or persons are in someone's home, you are in essence inviting that outside force you're trying to communicate with into your home. A very bad idea indeed.
A very bad idea indeed. Just don't allow them in. You could just set the intention that only helpful entities and energies and spirits that want to help you are welcome to communicate with you and to enter your space, and any malicious spirits that want to harm you in any way are not welcome. There, problem solved.
Inviting something in whose intent you can't be sure of, the place where you're supposed to feel and be the most safe, but because you're inviting in this outside force whose intentions you do not know or understand, it could possibly become the least safe place for you in the world.
I think the problem here is the difference of like beliefs. Again, I'm making assumptions about his beliefs based on what he's expressed. Like, that's all I can base it off of. I'll start with my beliefs. One of the things I really love about witchcraft is how empowering it is. You take a situation that feels uncertain, confusing, maybe even scary, and you give yourself the power to solve that problem, to make it less scary, to make it more comforting and comfortable. And you have the power to do that through your intention. You set your intention to welcome, again, helpful spirits and entities that you want in your space, and to prevent unhelpful spirits and entities from coming in. And you have the power to do that. You are empowered to create a safe space to do what you will in. Again, that's one of the things I really enjoy and love about witchcraft. He is setting a scene where you have no control over what happens to you. And simply using this tool is what's going to create something terrible, frankly, that using a Ouija board will open you up to disaster, and you have no say in what happens as a result. And I don't believe that. So I think, he just has a different set of beliefs in which he lives in a world where using this tool puts you into a position where you don't have control over what happens to you. And I have a belief that I live in a world where a tool doesn't inherently have power, that I give it power, and I can set the circumstances of what happens in my space. So I guess that's kind of what we're going to find, is that we just live in different realities and beliefs about the world. So I guess we'll just keep seeing what he has to say, but that's what I'm getting so far.
Bad idea. Now, in doing this, there's a worst case scenario, which is that you end up opening a portal. A portal that doesn't necessarily close once you're done with your communications.
So then you would just close it. Like if you opened a portal, then you just close it. I mean, I don't know a ton about portals. I don't have any experience with a portal. Maybe I'm being naive in this situation, but if you can open something, then you just close it. You just close it.
And what can come through portals that you can't see from a place you don't know anything about? Well, doesn't sound good. Leaving an open door for whatever wants to come through into your home to come through in the future? Yeah, really bad idea.
But again, if you open it, then you just close it. You don't have to leave it open. You don't have to leave it open for anything to come through. Also, if you set the intention that only things that can come, that have your best interest at heart, can come through, then you're good.
Now let's get into how the Ouija board and other divination tools work with a little more specificity. So the board itself acts as a physical conduit through which beings of a non-human nature can gain access to the user of the planchette so as to manipulate the planchette for the purposes of communication, which also requires the manipulation of the user of the planchette, that being you if you're foolish enough to use a Ouija board in the first place.
I disagree with how the Ouija board works. So it's kind of hard to find a common ground if we fundamentally disagree on how this tool works. Now, you may have different, whoever's watching this, you might have a different belief about how these tools work. Here's what I think happens. I believe that you are moving it. You, the human, the physical being who has your fingers gently resting on the board. I'm sure anyone who's used one of these tools probably has a memory similar to this, but I remember my grandparents had a Ouija board in their game room, and I remember bringing it out with my cousins and my sister. And we'd all sit around and we turned out all the lights, and we all had our fingers gently resting on the planchette, and then it starts to move, and you all say, "Stop moving it! I'm not moving it, you're moving it! You stop moving it!" And I'm sure you have a very similar memory to mine. Somebody, I believe that one of us was moving it. And I don't think it was intentional. I think that it's something that happens in your subconscious mind where you kind of involuntarily move and answer the question. So it's sort of in the way that you want it to be answered, but since it's happening at a subconscious level, it's a deep response. It's not the surface of like what you want on a conscious level. It's what you want the answer to be on a subconscious level, which is a message on its own. It's similar to how I think pendulums work. Let me get my pendulum out. It's my pendulum box. Is that pretty? Sorry, Nox. I got this with a Kickstarter as well. Cosmovision's Oracle deck, which is beautiful. This is sort of an aside too, but this is a pendulum. So it has rose quartz, heavy thing on the bottom. It doesn't have to be crystal. It could be anything that's heavy. And then at the top, there's something to hold on to. So in this case, it has a bead. Now you rest your elbow on a surface. I'm going to put it on this box so that you can see. A flat, sturdy surface. You try to bring your hand as still as possible, which is, holding your hand very still is impossible. Your hand doesn't completely still. So, but as still as you can, and then you bring the pendulum to a natural hanging. Then you ask your question. It's already moving. So maybe I would say, is Nox hungry? I can see my hand is shaking. See, now it's starting to go back and forth. And I didn't consciously move it. Now it's kind of going in a circle. I breathed. I was breathing, and that moved my arm. My blood is pulsing into my fingers, and that's putting a vibration into the chain. And my hand is just naturally moving. And that makes the pendulum start to move, and then it builds up momentum, and slowly starts to move more. So now it's going clockwise. I think it's clockwise. Yeah. And depending on your pendulum, that would answer your question. Usually you ask like a yes or no question, and one direction is yes and another direction is no. But my point is, you can't keep your hands completely still. So of course things are going to move slightly. And then there's this thing called, I think it's ideomotor. I don't know how to say it. I've only read the term. But basically it's that you can move things without consciously thinking about moving it. It happens in your subconscious mind. So with all of that said, I personally think this is all coming from our subconscious mind, not from a spirit that has taken control over our body. Another explanation that you might believe in is that the spirit is actually moving the planchette. So there's a spirit in the room with us that's moving the planchette. And I guess, I mean, that's a possibility as well. That's not what I personally believe. I guess if I'm being open to any explanation, spirit taking control over your body is another possibility. I think that's the least likely possibility though, because that implies that you have no authority over your own body simply by using a tool. It's like you start using the tool and you've signed a permission slip to open your vessel to anything that wants to come in. And that seems really far-fetched to me.
Now, the entity you are communicating with, whatever its nature may be, uses the physical conduit as a bridge of sorts to gain access to the physical body of the user or users in varying degrees. Now, the degree of access and control gained is based to a certain extent on the strength of the entity itself, as well as the constitution and strength of the user or users of the divination tool, as well as the user's mental state.
If your mental state and your strength and constitution plays a factor in how much you can be possessed and controlled by a non-human entity, why can't you have complete control, like complete strength over your body? If there's these varying degrees, why isn't part of the spectrum complete separation of you and the entity up to complete possession, the entity taking complete control over you? That should be the spectrum. Complete separation to full possession. But you're saying that no matter what, when you use these tools, you have already given some access.
And more play into just how much access the entity in question is able to gain over the user of the divination tool, and in turn how much they can manipulate them. One thing though is crystal clear. Access to the user and their physical form is required, at least initially, to enable communication via the physical medium in question, that being the divination tool. By the way, this is why blindfolding a user of a Ouija board causes it to stop working in most cases. You see, the outside force needs the physical senses of the divination tool's user to manipulate the planchette. Therefore, if the person using it can't...
Okay, I'm sorry. An all-powerful non-human entity has the ability to take control over somebody's body, but their power is limited by if that body is blindfolded. That makes no sense. I mean, giving you the benefit of the doubt that any of this makes any sense, which to me it doesn't, it makes no sense that something that powerful would be limited by something like a blindfold.
Can't see, then the entity in most cases also cannot see. And yes, there are some cases of planchettes moving on their own and spelling out messages, but that's when the entity itself has more fully manifested into our realm. By the way, this is an extremely rare occurrence, as the main goal of using a Ouija board is not communication, but outright possession of the Ouija board's user by the non-human entity.
I just needed to pause it because I'm annoyed. I'm trying to give them the benefit of, not the benefit of the doubt, that's not the right phrase. I'm trying to be open to their beliefs as I'm listening. And I'm coming at this through the lens of my own beliefs. So it's hard because our beliefs are very divided. They don't align. So seeing things through their lens is a challenge. But I'm trying very hard. First of all, the way that he gave power to the tools more than any other tool, that is a difference. The hypocrisy of his condemnation of divination, but allowing for mediumship, and his misunderstanding about what a non-human entity is. Because again, to me, that would include God. So I'm just kind of frustrated. I'm trying to consolidate his beliefs and follow his train of thought, but it's very hard because there is disconnects and differences of opinion.
As I said earlier, the Ouija board itself was marketed as a way to corrupt our youth. It's not, again.
I don't think it's marketed in a way to corrupt our youth. You may believe that it is a tool that corrupts our youth. I don't think that's the way that they're marketing it. Pretty sure no marketing team went into the boardroom and was like, well, let's call this a tool for corrupting our youth. They'll fly off the shelves. No, I think that was a misspeak, and I know I have tons of misspeaks, so I shouldn't, dwell on this. But that one was funny to me.
It's been disseminated and put into use based on people's curiosity, ignorance, and a total lack of belief in its efficacy. Because of this curiosity and ignorance and fascination with the paranormal, many a young person and some very stupid older people as well who believe it's wise to tempt fate have employed it just to have a little fun. Let's see what happens. Yeah, real smart.
He's just so condescending.
And while most people experience nada, at least in the moment, others have had some very bad experiences indeed. I should also add that just because you use this device and experience nothing doesn't mean nothing has actually happened. Many a person has used a Ouija board or some other divination tool and had nothing occur at the time, yet days or weeks down the road, they started experiencing some unseen activity in their homes. This delayed effect is not uncommon. You should keep this in mind.
I like that he mentioned nothing happening and something really bad happening, but he doesn't talk about the times that somebody used a tool like this and something really positive and good for them happened. That part doesn't matter to him. It's only the nothing and the bad, and also the nothing that happened is also bad.
Also, keep in mind that even if nothing occurs after using a divination tool, that doesn't mean you didn't unleash something. It could simply mean that whatever might have been unleashed didn't find you a particularly tempting target, so it went on its way to find easier prey.
Oh, the shade. He's like, oh, that demon didn't think you were worthy of possession. They went on to find somebody else. If you used one of these Ouija boards, the demon that you unleashed actually thought that you were too lame to possess. So just know that if your experience with a Ouija board was like nothing happened, it was actually because the demon that you unleashed thought you were lame. The shade.
Outcome of using a divination tool. Each use allows potential negative entities to enter our realm and gain access to the person or persons who are foolish enough to dabble in such things, thereby opening those people up to possible demonic possession. Now, how does this possession occur? Well, when using divination tools, the user actually bypasses, on purpose, their own natural protections so as to facilitate contact.
Again, only if you set that as your intention. You have the ability to protect yourself and your space through your intention, creating a safe space that contains only energies and entities that you allow and bars any entities and energies that you don't want in your space. Just using the tool doesn't automatically bypass that. His view of this, it seems like, is such a place of powerlessness and fear when it's really a powerful position to be in, to dictate what you allow into your space and what you don't allow. I just want to reiterate using a tool doesn't automatically make anything happen. It's just a tool. You're the one who has the power to control the situation, to protect yourself. So he's giving too much power to the tool and not enough power to the user of the tool. Like again with my example with the hammer, it is like saying, if you use a hammer, you are going to open yourself up to possession from demons. It sounds ridiculous, right? And it's true with these kinds of tools too. They have a connection to supernatural things, but they themselves are not supernatural. They are cardboard, metal, wood, physical objects that only have power when we give them power.
One of these natural protections is generically called our aura.
What? Okay, as I mentioned, I made assumptions about this person's beliefs based on the context of the video and the content of the video. And I feel like he said a lot of things that support my assumptions. Talking about auras, though, isn't that one of those things that's on those memes that's like, gateway to witchcraft, and it's like aura, chakras, meditation, crystals, essential oils. And it's like warning parents that if their kids start doing any of these things, they are on their road to witchcraft and you need to intervene. I mean, I guess Christians could believe in the aura. Seems like it's one of those things that would be in the realm of like various laws, Leviticus, or what's the other one that I was looking at earlier? Deuteronomy, I think. Honestly, it's some of these things are so irrelevant to a modern human. I don't see how somebody can live by the book in a modern world. Detestable practices. It seems like it would be one of those things that would be listed among the detestable practices section of Deuteronomy. Divination, sorcery, interpreting omens, engaging in witchcraft, casting spells, mediumship, spiritist, or those who consult the dead. Seems like auras would fit in with that, but maybe I am misinformed about Christianity and there's a book of auras. Regardless, I am fascinated that he brings up auras as being a natural protection. I would like to see where he's going with this, and I will let him finish.
I'll let you finish.
I don't think that he understands it, though. But let's see. Let's see.
Which actually serves as a barrier against unseen negative forces. Again, divination tools act as a conduit. Let me give you a short analogy that makes it easier to understand. First, I want you to imagine a wall. Now imagine the wall is so high and smooth that it's impossible to climb. And if an enemy wants to get past it, well, they're going to have to bash their way through it. A not so easy task. Now I want you to imagine a tunnel going underneath the wall, which completely bypasses the wall and allows you easy access to whatever's on the other side.
No. 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 First of all, a wall is not a very good analogy for an energy field. Electric fence might be a better analogy. Not even like one of those ones that are buried underground, and if you're wearing a collar, like a dog is wearing a collar, and they try to cross the barrier, they get shocked. So it's like invisible, but it's there. That's maybe a better analogy. A wall is like so solid, and having to break a hole into it to get through, that's not the way that I view auras. An aura is an energy field, in case you're unfamiliar. Your energy field around your body, your physical body. It's a spiritual body around your physical body. It's permeable. Shielding, putting up a shield, intentionally protecting your energy is called shielding. That would create a wall around you. Especially if you visualize a wall, then it would create a wall around you that only can be passed through if you break through it or if you allow something through. But it's not something that you just have. You have to intentionally create that protective barrier. Additionally, casting a circle is another way to create that protection using wards, all of these measures are things you can do to protect your space and yourself, your energy. But I think he's misunderstanding the aura. It's not a protective barrier. It's just your energy field, your energy body. And just like your physical body is vulnerable, your energy bodies are vulnerable inherently. So that is something I disagree with him on. And like I said, maybe Christians have their own beliefs surrounding the auras and it is a protective barrier. As somebody who practices divination, I feel like we should use my belief system when talking about the protective measures.
Now, once you've imagined this scenario, you have a pretty good idea of how divination tools work. Just as the tunnel in the analogy I just mentioned allows enemies to bypass a wall in their path by simply going under it, divination tools allow the entity in question to gain access to the physical being of the user of the divination tool simply by using the tool itself.
No. Again, he's giving the tools too much power. The tool is a tool. It's not a tunnel. It's not a bridge. It's just the tool. Just trying to see it from his perspective. If we're talking about these tools as being a conduit between you and the entity you're trying to communicate with, then I suppose I could see it how it would be like a tunnel. I don't think that necessarily means that it is automatically opening you up to unwanted energies entering your space. So I can agree with him that these tools become a tunnel or a bridge, a connection between you and these entities that you're communicating with. But I don't think that necessarily means that now you are completely unprotected. For one thing, there's only one entry point. So it's a lot easier to protect one entry point than your entire surface area around you. But also, you can still decide what is allowed to go through that tunnel or what's allowed to go over the bridge.
As a bridge, as a tunnel, to easily access what's on the other side. Now, this brings me to another aspect of a divination tool's use, and that's the invitation, the invite. When you use a divination tool, what you're doing, in essence, is opening the door and saying welcome to a guest who's waiting outside. Welcome! Come on into my home. The use of the divination tool is the invite, and the divination tool itself is the door through your natural defenses, which the outside entity can then easily pass through to get to the inside of your home.
Yes, but again, you can decide what is entering.
Which is actually the inside of you. Sound like a bad idea? Yeah, it's a really bad idea. So this, more than anything else, is why Ouija boards and other divination tools are so dangerous. They invite in what are almost always hostile forces and allow them easy access to the most vulnerable parts of the human self.
What is his sample size for that statistic? Almost always hostile. Has he talked to anyone who's had a good experience using a Ouija board or another divination tool? Obviously not. Because if I were to give that statistic, then my statistic would be that almost always the interactions with these tools are positive, helpful, beneficial. So I guess it just depends on who you are interacting with to make up a statistic, and that is why this is not a scientific study. His sample is probably other people with similar beliefs to him. I'm sure he's not interacting with a lot of people like me who have had positive experiences and would mess up his statistic.
This is why you can so easily find videos on YouTube and other video hosting platforms of people becoming possessed when using the Ouija board. The use of the device takes away the need of an outside force to break down a person's natural defenses through what is called demonic oppression, and instead allows the outside entity.
What is demonic oppression? What is that? I thought we were talking about possession. Is this something different? Or is this like a new way to discuss possession? Okay, this is interesting. The question on gotquestions.org is, what does the Bible say about demonic oppression? I just Googled demonic oppression and this was the first result. There is strong biblical evidence that a Christian cannot be demon-possessed. Many Bible teachers describe demonic influence on a Christian as demonic oppression to distinguish it from possession. The Bible says that the devil seeks to devour believers, and Satan and his demons scheme against Christians, as Satan attempted with Jesus. Demonic forces tempt us to sin and oppose our efforts to obey God. Should a Christian allow the demons to succeed in these attacks, oppression results. And basically that's when a Christian continues to sin and doesn't serve God. I've never heard of this before, and so it might not be all Christians. I don't think it is, because I know several Christians who don't believe in demons or Satan, but a particular group of Christians believe this about demonic oppression. Now, what's interesting about this to me, I don't think that Christians invented the ideas of demons. There's a long history of demons long before Christianity emerged as a religion. But it's a very common, the only people who call me demonic are Christians. It's very common for modern Christians to use the terminology of demons. So what's interesting to me is that people who pretty much exclusively use this term cannot actually be possessed by these things. It's just like a superiority complex that a Christian can't actually be possessed by a demon, something that they pretty much exclusively refer to, and only people who are not Christian can be possessed by them, even though most of us don't even believe in them. I don't know. It just seems like ironic or something to me that that is the reality.
To jump right to the possession phase from the get-go.
Everything that I just said does not apply to this particular person. Apparently they believe that oppression is a lesser form of possession, and that you just jump right over the oppression stage to possession if you use a Ouija board.
And I should add that no one is strong enough to not be affected at all when using such devices.
No one? Do you know everybody? You know every single person on this planet, and no one is strong enough to not be influenced by these effects? Bold of you to say.
Something may choose to leave you alone and go on its merry way, but if it so chose, it could affect you. As strong as you might think you are, or as much as you might think that your lack of belief and skepticism armors you against being affected by using such devices, know that you are mistaken. No one is immune. So in addition to being arrogant to dabble in such things because you believe that you're above such or it can't affect you because you're too strong, you're also being incredibly irresponsible because doing such could potentially also place other people at risk.
It's almost over. I'm really annoyed with this person.
Now, personally, I recommend never using any kind of divination tools at all. The best thing that can happen is nothing, and the worst is horrible beyond imagining.
Again, I feel like you're missing half of the spectrum. Your spectrum goes from nothing happens to horrible beyond imagining. What about wonderful, helpful, amazing, incredible, positive changes in your life? There's an entire half of the spectrum that you're just ignoring. Lots of people use divination tools and have amazing experiences, are able to learn more about themselves and their situation, make changes that are positive for their life. It's very strange to completely ignore that half of the spectrum. Like, what is the reasoning behind that? I know you're trying to make a video that's like scaring people away from using these tools, but you're just lying. You're just lying about the different experiences that people have.
They're playing games with loaded guns and thinking they're toys. It's never a good idea.
I agree. Guns are not toys.
And yes, I know many of you out there have probably watched a good amount, maybe a lot, of videos where paranormal investigators are employing Ouija boards for the purpose of communicating. That doesn't mean it's safe. That just means they're doing something stupid.
Oh, what a claim. Sorry, my shoulder is like really hurting. I think I've been sitting weird because Knox is sharing this chair with me. So I've been like sitting weird. So I apologize if my stretching is distracting. I'm just trying to like fix my shoulder.
It also should tell you all you need to know about the level of expertise that these people possess.
Well, they probably know more about it than you do, since you're only talking about one half of the experiences that people have. Also, the people that you see on like TV or even on YouTube channels that are paranormal investigators, I don't have any comment about whether they're all accurate or they're all frauds. I do know that at least on one occasion, there was a fake on one of those TV shows, because when I was in Portland, before I moved there, I went on vacation with my mom and the friend that moved to Portland with me and her mom, and we took one of those like tours, historical tours of the town. We were tourists, so we took a tour. One thing that we did on the tour was we went under the city. Apparently, in the past, it's time for History Lessons with Maggie. There was these underground tunnels that were used to kidnap people who had gotten too drunk at the bars. The bartender would take them into the basement, and then they would basically be sold onto these ships, and by the time they woke up the next day, they'd already be out to sea, and so they had no choice but to work on the ship. So it was a way to basically force people into labor, which is terrible. That's terrible practice. But there's this whole elaborate system of tunnels underneath the city of Portland. And I don't know if that was the main purpose, but that was one of the ways they were used. And that was History Lessons with Maggie. So anyway, we were in the tunnels, and in modern times, business owners have sealed off their personal basement so that, you know, you have your own basement, but you don't have access to every other business on your block. But at one point, one of those shows, I think like Ghost Hunters or whatever, they filmed in those tunnels, and they made it seem like it was this huge maze, and they could go all over Portland underground through these tunnels, which is wrong, obviously. Now they're sealed off. All they had been doing was they went under one of the businesses into the basement and kind of walked around in circles. So there's at least one occasion where there was a lie, and that means that there might be others as well. Totally an aside and has really nothing to do with this. But he mentioned it, and the way my brain works is that I'm going to tell you a story if I have one. So let's get back to his video.
As should what is oftentimes the consequence of their using the Ouija board. I've watched many of these videos as well, and usually the outcome is not desirous. What I've seen when people do this is increased, not decreased levels of activity, and in some cases these...
I wonder if the increased activity is because they're on a television show where it's more entertaining if there's more activity. And so maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they used a Ouija board, and just the fact that they're on an entertaining television show where they're trying to sell the entertainment value.
These so-called investigators have had something follow them home and then set up shop in their house. As I said, it's a bad idea to use divination tools. Anyhow, I hope this video has to some extent been informative in regards to what divination tools are, their actual purpose, and what the risks are in using them. Specifically the Ouija board in relation to this video, but generally all divination tools.
Okay. Also, sorry I keep like scratching my face and my nose. I am very much allergic to my cats. I love them, so I deal with it, but it makes my face and nose and pretty much everything itch. So if you notice that happening, it's because this one is sitting here, and I keep petting him because I love him, and it makes me itch. So back to this video. I think what's so frustrating about it is, one, the emphasis of the bad stuff that could happen without any acknowledgement of the positive side effects of using divination tools. Another frustrating thing is just the fear-mongering. Again, those are related. Emphasizing the bad things that could happen is fear-mongering. There was some hypocrisy with, again, it's my assumption of his beliefs, so it's maybe not hypocrisy, but with the other types of people who I've interacted with who have similar beliefs surrounding divination, it is hypocritical for this person to be, divination is bad, but mediumship, that's okay, especially if they're basing their beliefs on the Bible. Again, he never did that, but I have encountered people who are that way. And so if you're going to, base a belief off of something and be cherry picking which beliefs you choose and which ones you're adamant about, it seems kind of hypocritical to me. This person was trying to make this video, I think, with good intentions, to warn people about something that they view as dangerous. They did it in a very smug way that was very irritating, but I do think that they had good intentions, regardless of the method of delivery. My intention with making this video is to show another side of the story. So to give like a balanced perspective that yes, there are some dangers of opening yourself up to the spirit realm, just like not everything in the physical realm is helpful to you and going to interact with you in a positive way. Not everything in the spirit realm is going to be helpful to you and interact with you in a positive way. But at the same time, there is a lot of benefits that can come from practicing divination. So I hope that you are not afraid. I don't want anyone to be afraid. I want you to feel empowered to do things that interest you without fear, but to use common sense, to use protective measures to keep yourself safe. So with all of that, I hope you enjoyed my reaction to this video. If you have anything else to add, if I misspoke or said something incorrect, please correct me in the comments. I am happy to learn and to be corrected, I suppose, is the only way to say that. Let me know if you like this kind of video, what else you would like to see from me. Give this video a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.